But in particular in our modern Western world, from the Renaissance right on to today, we have seen an increasing split between God and the world, or the gods and the world. This goes with the revival of the philosophy of Epicureanism, which started to become popular in the 15th century and then had a real surge forwards in the 18th century in Britain and America and France and in a different way in Germany, and have left us with this legacy where most people assume that if the gods exist, they are a long way away. And so we then turn to the natural world, to the world of science, to explain things. And indeed, of course, science has made huge strides. Medical science, particularly, can now do all sorts of things and know all sorts of things about our bodies and minds, which we didn't know 300 years ago. That's been a wonderful thing. But the same science that does that has also created atomic bombs, has also created gas chambers and nuclear missiles and goodness knows what. So science by itself seems to be a bit ambiguous. It's a tool which is at the service of human beings going this way or that way. Now, faced with that split-level world, the gods a long way up there and us down here, many Christians in the 17th and 18th and 19th centuries accepted that model and said, well, yes, God is angry with the world because of sin, but the saving death of Jesus is the means by which the wrath of God has been diverted, so we can leave this present world, and be forgiven and go and live in the upstairs world with God. That, however, leaves that semi-pagan view of God untouched. And it's that semi-pagan view of God which the good news of the gospel really ought to challenge. Because, of course, the saving death of Jesus is at the heart of the good news of the gospel. But it's not because we have a vicious bully of a God who somehow needs to be placated. It's because God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Today's modern atheism goes similar routes. It often says, well, there's probably no God, so stop worrying and get on with your life. A few years ago, a group of atheists hired advertising space on the London buses and put that as a poster on those buses. There's probably no God. I love that probably. It's a very British way of doing it. There's probably no God, so stop worrying and get on with your life. In other words, it assumes that if there is a God, we should spend all our time worrying. You think, hang on, did you never read the New Testament? The New Testament is full of God sending messengers to people to say, don't worry, stop worrying, don't be afraid. Actually, that phrase, don't be afraid, is the most frequently repeated commandment in the whole Bible. But that modern assumption that if there is a God, we should spend all our time worrying, and it's only if there isn't one that we can relax, that simply stands the Christian message on its head. It assumes, not least, that if there is a God, he doesn't want us to enjoy ourselves, that he's a killjoy who says about all the things in the world that make our life good, oh no, you can't do that, don't want you to do that, that's very naughty. I once met a man who had obviously been brought up with this view of an angry God, and I remember him saying plaintively to me, he said, the trouble is everything Jesus is against, I like. And I stuck in my mind, that was years ago, and I understand where he was coming from. But actually, the world of the gospel is a world of joy and new creation and new possibilities. And actually, the real good news is that the God the atheists didn't want to believe in doesn't exist at all. From that point of view, they were quite right. There is no God like the one they were running away from. But when Jesus' first followers talked about the God who they saw revealed in Jesus, who they saw active by the Spirit, this was a very different God, and the news of this God is good news indeed.